Settle down, class. I said settle down, now quiet.
Hey, it's Sergeant Be Safe.
Hi, class. Sergeant Be Safe here.
Hi, I'm Kasaya. I'm the class speaker for the day. Here's my list of questions. Why did you want to become a police officer?
I wanted to become a police officer to help out people and kids like you.
How long have you been a police officer?
A little over 15 years now.
How did you become a police officer?
I had to get good grades in school and I graduated from the police academy.
Why do you like being a police officer?
Because it's the type of job where every day could be different.
The kids had a great time. Thank you for visiting with us, Sergeant Be Safe.
I'm glad to hear it. I had a great time too. Now you guys go and be safe.
Subscribe now.
He is a son, a father, a brother, a law officer, an accomplished officer.
And 4 over and out.
Subscribe now.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Thank you guys for tuning in. We have another amazing show this week ahead of us. Some of you see the name right here. Some of you may know him. Others of you may not. But get your questions ready and get ready to learn something and get ready to have an amazing time with this interview. It's your motivational speaker, your empowerment coach, your author, and your favorite baker's favorite baker, Coach Clee, coming at you with another live video. And I'm excited to be in the lab this time. We're in the lab with Black and Blue. You know, we transitioned from the lab to Black and Blue, where this is the podcast where we highlight officers that are rookie, that are seasoned, or even retired officers and their experience in the world of law enforcement. So it's a tremendous time to learn something. It's a tremendous time to be entertained. It's a tremendous time to ask your questions. Okay, we got to give a shout out to the sponsors. One of the sponsors you see in the comments section, and he's actually been live on the show, not officially live on the show. I'm sorry, he's been live on the panel before. MG4 Tech. If you need it, check his website out. His website's in the comments section. If you need anything done on your website, on your podcast, anything digital done, make sure he's the guy to go to. You need to check him out. He does some wonderful things for me. He's done some wonderful some things for other people that I know of that have their own digital platform. And if you're looking for that leg up, he's going to give you that leg up. Also, another one of our sponsors is One Way Publishing. You see the books behind me? Those are just a few of the books that they help publish. You know, their motto is they could take a mere thought and turn it into a book that's bought. And so One Way Publishing is a great place where if you want to be a self-author, if you have editors, publishers, formatters, artists, photographers, so many different things. We can bring your needs to the forefront. And One Way Publishing is also a sponsor for this platform, Black and Blue, and Sergeant Be Safe. And I hope you guys are liking the Sergeant Be Safe commercials because they're going on strong and they're a lot of fun to do. Stay tuned because I got a special guest that's coming to the forefront momentarily.
Hey, Sergeant Be Safe. Have you gotten your copy of The Lab Part 2?
Hello. No, I have not.
Well, I understand. It did just come out, but make sure you go and grab your copy as soon as possible. The Lab Part 2 contains so many amazing people and their stories. Let's give Coach Clee a round of applause for completing another book. It was great seeing you again, Sergeant Be Safe. Make sure you let me know what you think of the book. By the way, did you see who made the cover?
I finally got my copy. Make sure you guys go get yours. This book was published by One Way Publishing. Workwithclee.com is the website. Make sure you order yours while supplies last.
Subscribe now.
And without further ado, I know you guys are waiting for the meat and potatoes of this interview. You see the names. Chief Marcus Jones. He's been in law enforcement for 37 years. He's the current chief of police of the Montgomery County Police Department in Maryland. He's also done he's a diversity trainer and a workplace violence presenter. Ladies and gentlemen, Sergeant Be Safe is going to one more time. I know you guys want to see him again, and we have our presenter right here.
Hello, this is Sergeant Be Safe. And I want to welcome all you viewers and our very special guest to Black and Blue. So get your questions ready and enjoy the show.
Film Pack.
Subscribe now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, here he is. Without any further ado, Chief Marcus Jones. Chief, you there?
I'm here. Coach,
how you doing tonight? I'm doing wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing very well today. Thank you.
Absolutely. I want to say it's an honor and a pleasure to have you on the platform. I'm looking forward to learning more about you and your experiences in law enforcement and the ways we can push the narrative ahead. But before we get into a full interview, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Sure. So I have been with the Montgomery County Police Department for all of my career, the 37 years. And I'm originally from Southern Virginia. I first went to Virginia Commonwealth University in Richmond, and there I I met my lovely wife and was able to actually come on board to the Montgomery County Police Department. I left college early, and my oldest brother was on the department here, and he kind of coerced me into coming here and starting my career in law enforcement. And once I got here, I loved it, and been here ever since.
Okay. Well, coming through, what actually gave you the burning desire? You said your brother was all on the department. Did he give you the burning desire, or was it something that the glamour, the glitz, the action, the helping the community? Is there something that actually gave you the burning desire to want to go through the academy?
So it's interesting. Years before, I mean, to go back some ways. First of all, our father was a Baltimore City deputy sheriff.
Okay.
And had given us some exposure to, the law enforcement, the career, and just to see what that was all about, his connection with the community. We were impressed about, how people had a lot of respect for him, but how he had a lot of engagement and community outreach in his own way. And we found it to be quite interesting. I actually went to college, and both my brother and I went to college that were business majors and the like. But I think, the excitement and the opportunity to allow us to be able to start our career. And for the fact that when we really started, there was a big push, particularly here in Montgomery County, to hire more minority officers, because that was something that they were clearly lacking in at the time both of us came on. So we really, the opportunity was there. And then it was sort of like just merging, and it was a fit for both of us. And again, I was forever grateful for him exposing me to the opportunity, because otherwise I don't know if I would have necessarily taken that track being a business major. So
yeah, that seems like an extreme difference. You're going to school for one thing, and then you go a totally different route, and then
absolutely,
you made a total career and life out of it.
Absolutely. But the ironic thing is, in my concentration, even in business when I got my degree, it was still about human resources management, even though a little bit different, but a lot of the same, right? That in retrospect, even in my role as chief of police, and as I've gone through the ranks, I've been managing people, right, in many different kinds of ways. So it's still, there was this merger that still occurred, even though I was in the law enforcement field, as we all know. So it's an interesting dynamic when you can bring other attributes of your education into a field such as law enforcement, because it's a very diverse field in its own right.
As it is, yes, it is. What's your? I know it's we understand in the label says chief of police, but what's your current position and responsibilities?
Yeah, so here I am in Montgomery County. Montgomery County is a community. We have 1.1 million people.
Okay.
And so the county police department here in Montgomery County, we police the entire Montgomery County community. So I oversee 1,200 police officers, plus about 700 professional staff. So we have a pretty big staff. And I manage those individuals who are phenomenal people, who do great work in our community. And my job as the chief is really to coordinate efforts with a wide variety of our community, to include the community members, to include our high-ranking legislative officials, as well as other high-ranking county government officials. And then when you're working with business community, you're working with residential community, in order to, again, create that safe environment, and to do it where you're actually doing your very best to build trust. And I know we'll get into that probably at some point, but building trust amongst everyone, no matter what community. Montgomery County is very diverse. So my role as the chief is to be very having that understanding of policing in a very diverse community, and making sure that our department is providing that quality of service and giving respect to everyone, no matter where they come from, what their social condition may be, what their financial condition may be, regardless. We're in a very wealthy area, but there's poverty here. So just like in other areas across the country. So all of those things are mixed in. And as the chief of police, I've got to be able to navigate that within the confines of my responsibilities in a very effective way in order to have the community's trust.
Makes sense. Good answer. Thank you. Thank you for answering. And as I know, we talked behind the camera a little bit. Throughout the course of your career, what are some other roles that you had throughout the department?
Yeah. So again, having been here for 37 years, I mean, I feel like we talked about this. I feel like it's almost too many careers. And in my younger days, I really spent a lot of times in patrol, but also I worked a great deal of my career as a narcotics investigator. I was an undercover officer for some time, but also did some major offender cases. And I worked in that role in actually 4 different ranks throughout my career. And I found that to be very rewarding. And I learned a lot and had the ability to really grow in that particular part of my career. But then I transposed into police management. And then as I continued again, looking for an opportunity, because we as African-American officers, we wanted to be able to represent, and we knew we could do the job. We could be in police administration and be very effective, particularly as we policed our communities all throughout the county. But that it also gave great pride to show that people could see that there was minority officers amongst the rank and file. So that was very important. And so I took that track and I took it very seriously, because I think it's a serious obligation to represent well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Is there anyone or a group of anyone that may have been a senior officer or FTO or just someone in your family or anyone that you kind of shadowed yourself under? Is there anyone that mentored you or helped influence you to help you get to where you're at right now?
Yeah, so one of the things I took a lot of pride in, I think, first of all, as I mentioned, my father, and then I gave the example of his community engagement, which that was sort of a baseline, a foundation. But when I became a part of the department, I mean, my brother was a little bit of a mentor in a way, because he even policed communities a lot different than the average police officer. Because he could develop a relationships, particularly in the Black community, that was able to resolve a lot of problems that were happening. And he had the trust of the people in the community in order to be able to resolve that. And I looked up to him with that. I remember one time we had an officer involved shooting in a predominantly Black neighborhood. And it really sparked some bad feelings, almost to the point of a riot. But my brother and some other officers who had the respect of those people in the community were able to basically calm the community down and work through that with no one else being injured or harmed, to include the community, and also to include police officers. But also, I would say, I remember when I came on, and this is, we look at history, and I think people need to really have a good understanding of history, no matter where you work or the environment in which you work or live. So it helps you to understand a little bit better about what you have to work through in order to get to certain places. But one of my mentors was the first African-American officer that was hired here, which was in 1968. And his name was Richard Williams. His name is Richard Williams. And Dick was the first African-American. He made it all the way up to assistant chief in Montgomery County. He would later become the chief of Madison, Wisconsin. But Richard really gave us a roadmap, right, of really understanding how to work hard and how to obtain and work hard to get through the ranks, but also be efficient in working with the community and giving, and doing it with the respect of the Black community, and helping to bring others up along with you.
Right.
And that was one of the things that I found to be a great lesson. And one of the things I try to emulate today is trying to figure out ways to pull people up with me along the way, particularly people of color, and help to guide them in what their ambitions are.
Gotcha. So, and I know you spoke of community and community being very important. Community, sometimes, you're being the buffer between certain officers with the department and certain members of the community. And if you're engaged with the community, you can help mediate situations before they explode and get out of hand. And you talked about individuals, whether they're business minded, whether they're wealthy, or whether they may be below the poverty level, they still need to feel safe and secure. How important do you feel community policing is in this 21st century?
Well, I find it to be very important. And, I think the one thing that seems to always, from my mind, I think it's very unique because a lot of people have a different view of what community policing may be.
Okay.
I think one of the basic premises in law enforcement, when you look at, we have 18,000 police departments in the United States. And when you really think about it from a perspective that policing is local, right? It's really, what does that particular community want their police department to provide as a service to them, and what's important to them, and the problems that they may have in the realm of public safety. And so, but the basic premise for all of this, I think the constant is relationship building. Right. I don't care where you are, when you have a relationship with your community and you're able to eliminate the fear factor of the unknown, right? On both sides, particularly on both sides, right? Regardless if it's the community members who've had a bad experience or bad experiences with their local police department, or as the police officers themselves who have a fear because they don't understand the very people that they police.
Right.
And so with that, creates that friction and that conflict. But when you know each other, right, and you begin to eliminate those fears, then those things, then you make for better, I think, community relations, and there's for better success and for safer communities. And I think that's some of the premise of where law enforcement really was well behind. And our department was like that. We're no different. We're not the perfect police department. But one of the things I think that I have always strived to do, and what I continue to do with my current department, is to get them to understand the most basic concept of focusing on relationship building and earning the trust of the community through that way. And you got to do it with communicating, right? You can't sit in your police car and think that just because you're driving to a particular community, you're automatically going to earn respect. It doesn't work that way, right? We know it to be that's a failed option. So these are the things that I think that are important, and community policing will all come together about how to interact with young people, with your senior citizens, with everyone, right? Because now you created that avenue of welcoming on both sides, and you're okay with allowing them into your space as well as you are going to be allowed into their space.
Right.
When we closed the doors, and policing was good for that. Well, we didn't want to talk to the community about a lot of things, because we would tell you, oh, no, that's we can't share that information, right? and so it became like it was this secret society in many ways. And in reality, there was really no need for us to do that, because again, I think there were other ways that we have proven to be true now, that we've allowed that door to be open, and allow the community to be a part of the solution making, in order to make communities safer.
Absolutely. And I like that you touched on you said it a couple times with communication. I know we harp on soft skills, on learning how to talk to people, whether like you said, the youth, the middle class, the elderly, whatever, wherever you're at, learning how to talk to people on a call or just out and about, whatever you're handling business, is an important skill, because that's the gap that bridges the bridges the gaps between the two entities itself.
Absolutely. I say this to my recruits and to my officers all the time. We have a lot of equipment that's attached to us on our uniforms, right? But the greatest tool that you have is actually your mouth and communicating, and your ears, right? Those two things. Because listening and, like you just said, talking to people, that's the value of policing, in my regards, of how you work through problems, because now you're communicating in an effective way. But you have to listen, right? As much as you want to talk, you also have to be willing to listen, and listen well. And so that's a skill I had to work on, right? And I remember in my younger days, that was one of the skills that I knew I really needed to work on. And so that's something that we really push towards our officers, to help them, because in today's environment, particularly with the world of social media, the new officers that are coming through, and I don't blame them specifically, because that's the environment in which they've been, that they've been a part of. But the reality is that you can still teach this way of communicating, and they can be great communicators. And it may not be the way that you and I might have communicated, right? They still have a way of communicating with the public that's still effective. But they have to be pushed in some regards, to make sure that they understand this is that valuable tool. These other things that we have on our belts are not always the most valuable tool that we carry each and every day.
Right, absolutely. And I remember one of my instructors during the academies X amount of years ago, they said, you got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you can listen to twice as hard as you would need to talk. And that resonated with me. I'm like, yeah, that does make sense. You need to listen twice as hard before you open your mouth and try to listen back.
Yes, great way to put that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And along with community policing, does your department, or do you take effect into anything like things like National Night Out, or Shop with a Cop, or Coffee with a Cop, or any of those events that kind of engage with the public as well?
We do all of those, right?
Okay.
We do. And again, I love National Night Out. The only thing I don't love about it is only one night out of the year, right?
That's true.
But I love it because our community, they embrace it. It's so busy here in the county that I can't even make all the events. I have to kind of pick and choose which community events to go to. But we do. We have these Cop with the Shop program. We have Coffee with the Cop. And we're even trying to grow our community engagement into a larger community, and doing a lot of things more. Particularly, we've done we did a basketball league, for example, this summer in one of our more, higher crime areas. But it was great for the kids, because it gave them that something to do, something to look forward to. And we did it, pretty much like a league throughout the summer when they would have downtime otherwise. So we've been trying to connect and do these different types of activities that's a little bit outside the norm, but the reality is to be part of our norm, right? Because it's engagement, and not only are we just playing basketball, but the reality is we would take time and we would bring in people from the community, some guys who have gotten in trouble before with the law, to help them explain to the young kids about the route in which they took, which was the wrong route, but how they corrected and are now living their lives in a better place. Or, some other positive role model that could also be brought in, that the kids might look up to. And it's just didn't have to be all police officers, because we wanted them to understand that we're all in this together and we support them. And
Mm-hmm.
so again, it gave them to look at the police in a different light, and not just about, when you see us, that there's trouble in the
Trouble.
community just because we rolled in and we're walking around or whatever the case may be. We want
Mm-hmm.
to give them that opportunity again. It's relationship building. So if you build relationship now, you might see an officer that you now are familiar with, at least you can recognize, and
Yeah.
maybe you feel more comfortable in having some dialogue if that's necessary.
Yeah, yeah. Good answer. Good answer. I think community relations is very important, that make everyone feel secure and actually get answers for certain cases or calls too. You start seeing a familiar face around, you feel comfortable having a call. Oh, that's the cop who played basketball with me. He's actually pretty cool. I know he likes
Right.
his individual sports team. He seems like a decent person. He seems like a human being. I'm gonna tell him, I'm not snitching, but hey, you might want to keep an eye on such and such going on at such and such time of day. Damn.
Right. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Absolutely. And I think that's the value in it, right? This is where I stress to my officers about, people in the community will, they want like you said earlier, the communities everybody wants to be safe, right?
Yep.
Everybody really does want a safe environment. So, but again, they've got to have people that they trust in
Mhm.
order to be able to share the information with, in a way that's effective. And so
Mhm.
you're exactly right that but if you don't have that relationship, you'll never get that. And I told people, I said, much to the success that I had, even when I worked in narcotics, was
Mhm.
about the relationships that I had with people who actually gave me information to help me build cases. I wasn't a drug addict, right? I didn't
Mhm.
live in that environment, but the people that I could gain their trust to share information, and they did it in an effective way. And I
Mhm.
had I had I had older women living in certain communities, apartment complexes, who were afraid to
Mhm.
put their grandkids outside.
Yeah.
Mothers afraid to allow their children to play, right? But
Mhm.
they would provide us with information because they trusted us,
Mhm.
and that we weren't going to do anything again, we're going to eliminate the problem, which was
Mhm.
the goal, but also that we were there to help protect them, to allow their children that they could go out and play and be in a safe environment. And
Absolutely.
and that's important. That's very
Mhm.
important.
Absolutely. I want to kind of change gears a little bit, and I want to talk about the rise, or quote unquote rise, of mental health and mental illnesses that we're dealing with. On a lot
Oh
of,
yeah.
I had a question yesterday actually, where someone asked me, how often when you're working, how many crimes do you see or deal with per day? And I'm like, that's kind of like a loaded question,
Right.
because I mean, if you're asking how many crimes, it may be a certain amount of number, but do you mean how many calls come in? That's going to be a larger number, because we deal with animal complaints, we deal with lockouts, we deal with things that may or may not be quote unquote
Right.
police matters, a lot of civil matters. But there's been, at least in my opinion and my experiences, a rise in mental health issues, where we have to deal with individuals who are actually currently going through a crisis in the middle of that call, and we now have to be trained to actually recognize what the crisis is and get them to an agency or institution that can help them.
Yeah. Oh, undoubtedly. I'll say this, Glee. Over the past, I would say 5 to 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
I remember there was this break I had where I was not so much, I was working in a different environment,
Mm-hmm.
working in investigations. But I remember coming back to the patrol division and seeing this incredibly large amount of reports about mental health interactions my officers were having
Mm-hmm.
with the public, and the numbers were just through the roof.
Yeah.
And to this day, those numbers have remained consistent.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're exactly right. Our department is dealing with it. In my opinion, I've said this many times. I feel like there were years past that the government, from the federal to the state to the locals,
Mm-hmm.
invested in those mental health services.
Mm-hmm.
They had institutions to
Mm-hmm.
assist people who were struggling with mental health crisis. those things have been really almost, I wouldn't say totally eliminated, but they have been decimated, right? And so now policing has become the how we've become front and center to be the solution makers for these individuals who go through these crises. And unfortunately, I see it across all parts of society, but you clearly see it in the minority community at a high level.
Okay.
And so that we see here. And so one of the things I know my county has and I've been really working with them, and they've been pushing the envelope about really providing more mental health counseling, more taking it out of the police department's responsibility, which I am totally on board with. In fact, we're looking at creating what they call a restoration center, where they would have staff on hand 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That now, if a police officer does encounter an individual who's going through a crisis, that they have somewhere that they can take them, and really does not fall on the hands of the police. I mean, now if we interact with someone who's going through that crisis, I'm sure you probably in the same boat. We're spending 3, 4, 5 hours with that one individual in an emergency room until they get service, and that can easily happen. Here, this whole concept that we're coming up with now, it's really going to be focused on us really kind of just taking them to the center and handing them off to the professionals to allow them to give them the service. So that's where I think those are the things we've got to go in that direction, right? I mean, there's an increase of amount that we're having of what we call mobile crisis teams. We have more social workers and crisis workers who are working with our officers and coming out and doing interventions. And that's been successful, but I think it could be even greater. And so clearly it's a problem in our society. I think again, the one thing we're working on in policing is about deconfliction, and it's really not creating a moment with individuals who are going through crisis. And again, we can't control every situation. Sometimes the other person on the other side of that does control the narrative to some degree, depending upon what are they thinking, what do they want to do to themselves or to others, that can sometimes cause that. But I will tell you, I think it will be a larger amount of success if departments across the country, and I think it's really leaning that way now, where we're focusing on deconfliction and not necessarily going in, as I stated before, and creating a moment that would force you to do something such as utilize a deadly force or something of that nature if you didn't have, otherwise. So.
Yeah, I like the idea of a center. I know locally here we have co-responders that ride with us. So once we have an individual in crisis, we can get the co-responder to them. They're professional crisis workers, for those that don't know what a co-responder is. And they can actually address the situation. If we need to take them to a facility to get them more help, they already have the phone numbers of the people or the contacts that they can fast track a lot of the things that we as officers on the road, we get that 800 number and we have to go through all the prompts, or we have to wait for someone to call us back, where they immediately have someone that they go directly to, and they can at least eliminate maybe an hour and a half worth of the red tape time to streamline and help get that individual the help they need.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you this: where do you see you and your position and your department in about 3 to 5 years? What's your I hate to say end game goal, but because you're never really stopping the place goals and trying to achieve them, but to kind of put things in perspective, what would you think your end game goal would be?
Well, I would first say this, right? I think another friend, and he has a favorite saying, and I had to just snatch it from him because it's so true. But the whole key to, I think, in leadership, and you get to a place And you get to an organization, and I
Mhm.
think the most important thing is to leave it better than you found it,
I
right?
like that.
You're right. And so first that drives me every day, right? To really look at again, I find this to be a very professional police department, but there can always be improvement. You're dealing with the human side of policing,
Mhm.
and we can always improve in our policies, our procedures,
Mhm.
all of those things. And I think, the 3 to 5 year vision is what any chief should have
Mhm.
for his organization. And even if I'm not here in 3 to 5 years,
Mhm.
you've now set the organization on the path that you believe that is the right path
Mhm.
for what the people really need in your community. And so that's what drives me, and that's what we're doing when we
Mhm.
look at just what you just talked about, looking at mental health being one of the primary things,
Right.
right, for us to improve upon in order again, and it goes to helping to build the trust in the community. And then that's the other part, right? It's really, I think what George Floyd brought to the table,
Mhm.
and when we look at that, and we learn lessons from George Floyd, there are a lot of lessons to be learned. I mean, the act itself is the most horrendous thing that I've ever seen
Mhm.
in law enforcement from that perspective. But what I think it also lends is that it helps the community to understand that you have to work with your local law enforcement in order to again create that department that you want to serve you.
Right.
And what I've seen, that we had people that we began to talk to that we never talked to before.
Mhm.
And then not only that, we were able to educate them about policing, but most importantly, I think they were also able to educate my officers
Mm.
about certain things that were occurring and are occurring in the community. And
Mm.
so to me, that's the win. And so I just wanted to be better and be greater than where we are today. I think we're better than we were 2 years ago, but
Oh
I
yeah.
clearly think we could be better in the 3 to 5 year window, right?
Mhm.
Because if you understand and continue to go down the track of this engagement and conversation,
Mhm.
education, and learning, the more people again, the more you know, because that to me, that's the knowledge is power, right? And
Right.
when you know more about policing, you understand better about why a police officer might act in a certain way. You might not necessarily always agree, but at
Mhm.
least you might understand a little bit better.
Exactly.
And most importantly, right, even if you now you can ask more questions and become more inquisitive because now you develop a relationship that information is to be shared both ways.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think that's where, again, when I look at that, to me, I would just want to say, if my department is to look back at 3 to 5 years, there's a lot of things we are in process of doing and
Mhm.
reorganizing the department and changing things here and there. But the mere presence of really that relationship building will be probably the most powerful accomplishment if we can be better tomorrow than we are today.
Right. I like that. Good answer. Good answer.
Yeah.
You touched on some things, we talked about on the show many times before, those of you that follow. Law enforcement is very cyclic. And like I say all the time, it's one minute or a few years, we're at the very top and we're everyone's hero and everyone loves us and we get parades and banners and we're just on cloud nine. And the majority of the time, at least from my experience, we're normally in the middle where
Mhm.
a lot of the people love us, that a lot of people may not like us, but we're tolerated. And then when we're needed, we go one way or another. Of course, during the beer virus, that happened, and so many things happened during that time. We were at the very bottom, and we weren't highly favored for what seems like a long time. It seems like we're coming out of that. But with like not only police departments or law enforcement, like a lot of other agencies, they're suffering from applicants, from recruitment and retention. How do you think we as a whole in law enforcement can take on those challenges and be more appealing to individuals who are not either want to hang on to the job a little while longer or coming out of school or the military and want to get into law enforcement or kind of on edge about getting into law enforcement?
Yeah, I mean, I think most importantly, we have to really come up with these strategies to help to really sell ourselves in a way that's effective and people can understand the value in their service, right? And to really talk to officers. I mean, I look at when my officers solve a crime. I mean, just recently we solved a cold case, a homicide that was 50 years old.
Oh wow!
Right, and so
Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. And so when you see the value in that, when you watch a victim's family just embrace the work that's being done, by officers who are truly committed to solving a crime such as that. But that's just a small thing. I mean a big thing. But that's you take for example anything you do in service. That one experience that you have with with someone who's involved in a traffic accident or a burglary call. That one time is the time they'll always remember their interaction with the police officer.
Yeah.
And so there are those things that have occurred in my career, and I'm sure in yours, that I can remember that I think that gives me sort of that oomph to continue on to serve people because I see the value that I've impacted somebody's life. I might not have known it at the time that I did it. People might have told me this 10 years later, but I will tell you that, that's something that, I don't even know if there's an amount of money that can satisfy me that way. Right.
Yeah,
So,
I can understand that.
Yeah. So I think it's about, again, when you get to talk to people who like serving people, who like doing something for their community, and they do it in a way that's honorable. What better profession is it than this? Now, granted, you're working in an environment that people, they love firefighters, right? Because firefighters can put out the fire and save the day, right? And police officers, we have that enforcement role that most people in the community they don't like that, right?
Right.
They don't like the fact that you could get a ticket or get arrested, right, by a police officer, and that's understandable. But also, but I think again, if you are really making sure that you as a police officer are shown as a human and that you can demonstrate your human skills, then people will then, of course, they will accept you better. And I think again, when people are nervous about crime, they want to be safe. They're going to respect you, but you still have to earn their respect by. And this is the entire profession. This is not just this is not Marcus Jones just telling you this,
right?
Because I can be that perfect guy. You can be that perfect officer, but there's somebody in another city that does something that's totally damaging, and it becomes another George Floyd, and then the entire profession becomes tainted. So we live in that type of a society, in the environment. Unlike most professions, most doctors don't get treated this way. Most nurses don't get treated this way, right? But in policing, we're more magnified because you have a power that most people don't have. And you have the ability to take away people's liberties. And from that perspective. And so we have to be, making sure we don't abuse our power.
Exactly.
And make sure that we do this in a very humane manner. And still, I tell people, I said, I've arrested many people, that I wouldn't bring them home for dinner, but I can sit there and have a conversation with them, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And just talk about the most basic things in life. And it's not an adversarial condition. It's just they did something that, that they're accused of making a mistake. They have to, i.e., pay their debt to society, whatever that might be. But I'm going to still treat them fairly. I'm not going to demean them. And I think that's the part where sometimes people overstep their boundaries in policing. And we know there's a lot of history behind that. So no, undoubtedly so. But if you're doing it the right way, and this is what I think it's still you got to go out, and we as police officers and people who are in the profession, we have to be ambassadors to those who want and try to encourage them to be a part of this profession, because it is very honorable, but it's a challenge. And nothing is easy, but anything that's rewarding is definitely not going to be an easy task. So that's so true.
Good way of putting it. That's a great way of leading into my next question as well. Having these skills. What would you say to an individual coming out of school, college, military, and they're looking to get in the profession, but they have questions and they don't know who to reach out to? Their questions are, what kind of skills should I possess before I actually start applying for departments? What would your suggestion be to them?
Well, I think if you have a track record of showing that you are committed to public service, I don't care what might have been your track prior to wanting to get into law enforcement. But I think, like in the military, you're doing a public service. You're protecting the country.
Right.
You made a commitment. If you are in college or you're in high school. Most of the police department, I would want to know, what else are you doing outside of your normal norm, if it's school or high school or college, or if it's just work. What are you doing outside of work? Are you a part of the community and involved in coaching? You're involved in mentoring. You're involved in assisting people in one way or another. To me, that community service goes step in step with what you would be doing as a police officer.
Right.
I think it has its rewards. It's an exciting field. As I think as you noted earlier, in your opening, no 2 days are exactly alike, right? It's exciting, and from that perspective, and this is, I think, the most important thing. I think people have a misperception that the majority of our communities don't respect law enforcement. And I find that to be far, far from the truth. I think that what I call the silent majority are people who the majority really do support law enforcement. It's just that they're not the ones, their voices are not being magnified for you to hear that. But I say that to my officers all the time, that our community really does support, us and what we do. It's just the fact that we don't hear it as often, and therefore you listen to the loudspeaker over here that might be more negative, and that becomes your focus. And so that sometimes then we look at it, and it really does lower your morale when that's all you think you're hearing. But in the big scheme of things, I think really people have to understand that it's an honorable profession. People have always found it to be that. And again, when you have the rewards of solving a case, helping someone out in their greatest time of need, and people never forget that, particularly when you did it well, when you performed well, they're never going to forget you for that. So, forget about that. So that's the most important thing, I think, that I would say to people, and bring the skills that you have. I've got some people who are very good from a technical standpoint, who come from the informational technology world, who bring skills to our job that, I don't necessarily have that, but then I have other people who have great people skills. And I've got other people who bring other, whether it's, whether they might serve on a SWAT team or they might be a traffic officer riding a motorcycle. It's a lot of different skill bases that are part of this profession. And not 1-2 people are alike for the most part. And so I think that's the greatest part, is the diversity of the backgrounds that people bring to the job.
Absolutely. Good answer. Good answer. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, stand by. We're going to cut to a quick commercial and we will be right back with Chief Marcus Jones.
Hello, ma'am. Send me gift cards and your credit card numbers over the phone.
Once Chance Wilder gets all of her information, we're going on a shopping spree. I'm talking Gucci, Fendi, and Prada.
I'll send the police to your house.
You mean to tell me that if I don't send you my credit card numbers over the phone, you're gonna come to my house and arrest me?
Absolutely. I love shopping on Amazon Prime, especially when everything is free 99.
I can't believe people are so gullible.
Sergeant, be safe. You're right on time. Can you help me?
I sure can. Hello, Wild Chance.
Oh no, Sergeant,
That's right.
be safe.
Never give out any credit card information over the phone.
I can't believe you led Be Safe right to us. Run, you fool.
Me? It isn't my fault. It was your idea.
You're caught and going back to jail. Remember, folks, don't buy gift cards and give that or credit card information over the phone, especially to a stranger. It could be Chance Wilder and his partner getting ready to rob you blind. Remember, take it from me, Sergeant Be Safe, and that'll be your tip of the day to get you on your way.
Subscribe now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, you know, we've got Chief Marcus Jones back here behind stage. We talked about so many different topics. Got to learn about his background, got to learn about his working narcotics and the rise to power and his current position and responsibilities as being the current Chief of Police of Montgomery County Police Department in Maryland. We got to talk about mental health. We got to talk about applicants and recruitment. We got to talk about community service, which is a huge deal right now. Everyone's asking you those questions. And in the course of conversation and so many different things, I may have forgot to ask a question, or he like I said, he's backstage. He may have forgotten, his memory may have gotten jogged, and he may want to actually talk about another topic here quickly. Chief, are you still here?
I'm still with you. Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. If there was anything that I forgot to ask, or if there's anything that you would like to say right now, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, Clee. I think that the profession of policing really has come a long way, but we've got and it's still a ways to go. And it's an opportunity again for community to be involved. I encourage people to know your local police department, to know what district you live in, and know who that commanding officer is, and create a relationship with those folks who work in your district, so that again that will help to, I believe, eliminate a lot of fears on both sides. And I think that I encourage even the local police departments to do the same, right? To be more open to having those types of relationships and being open to community events that again, everyone gets to know each other and it becomes a better environment.
There you go. Absolutely. I agree. I totally agree. I understand. And Chief, I appreciate you coming on this live, blessing this platform with your knowledge, with your skills, with your information. I appreciate you donating your time. I'm truly grateful for that. I know this is the first time we connected digitally. I hope it's not the last. I wish you much success. I hope you and your department flourish, and I hope the law enforcement arena in itself it soon rises back to the levels of greatness where I know it can be.
Absolutely, sir. And please, I'll be more than happy to come back, and if you would so have me, and stay safe. And to everyone, please stay safe and stay healthy.
Absolutely. Thank you. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, tuning in. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, who are going to watch the replay. Make sure you guys tag, like, and share. Remember, we go live weekly with an interview of someone from that's either a rookie, seasoned, or retired officer, and they explain their background and their experiences. So make sure you guys get your questions ready. We will be live again next week. We love you. Be safe and continue to tune in. Good night.